So, Uncle Sal, are you ready to do this?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, let's do this, mate. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in this big city in like what's a central business district. It's a busy metropolis, busy sort of modern city, and there's a crowd of people.
Yeah.
Neo and Morpheus are sort of making their way through the people. Now we see
hmm
Morpheus sort of weaving in and out of the people with ease, whereas Neo's still inexperienced at this point, and so people are bumping into him, and he's really having trouble and difficulty keeping up with Morpheus. And so Neo's basically inexperienced at this point, and Morpheus is teaching him. Morpheus says to him the following quote. He says, "Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy." That's pretty deep. So let's dig into what Morpheus said here, Sal, and let's try and extract some potential meaning or wisdom from it. So I'll let you start, Sal, and then I'll give my 2 cents. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Sounds good.
Okay, go for it.
All right. So this is a deep quote that Brother Alexander has shared with me. And from my interpretation, from my spiritual journey and what I've understood
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, my Sufi path, when you reach a heightened state of awareness, now this is true. If you can ask any spiritual master this,
Sure.
your body sends out a shock wave. So basically, the benevolent beings around you find
Mm-hmm.
out who you are, and the malevolent beings also know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in a reality where it's as above, so below. So when you're in this third dimension reality, and there's a fight between good and evil, let's say, in the fourth dimension, when your frequency reaches
Mm-hmm.
fourth dimension, you have that barrier between the 3D and where the Most High is, all the way on the top. And the malevolent beings up there identify that this person is waking up. That's why business, teachers, lawyers, anyone or anything can be used against you.
Mm-hmm.
In
Mm-hmm.
terms of handlers or people coming into your life as friends, as lovers, as mates, anyone or anything, like Neo finds out that anyone could turn into an agent because they were still part of supporting that system that was built on false history, false
Right. Right.
pretenses, socioeconomic statuses that's designed to keep a certain demographic of people in a certain income,
Mm-hmm.
certain jobs, where you're not allowed to expand beyond a certain capability because that's where the system wants to keep you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality that Morpheus is teaching, that unless, I mean, look at it, my brother, look at it in almost 2022 that we're in, that
Sure.
people are still fighting over race and religion, and
Mm-hmm.
we're only one human race, and each religion is basically telling you the same truth.
Mm-hmm.
How can we free the minds of these people who have already made up their minds, and they're not even satisfied with the human race and making peace with their own self? So how about the other beings that are out there?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they're not elevated to that status yet, what Morpheus is saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen Sufi masters basically in crowded cities,
Mm-hmm.
and just like how Morpheus walked right through the crowd, just like those masters do.
Wow.
Because what happens is when you let go of this world,
Mm-hmm.
my brother, then and all the things around you which are
Mm-hmm.
supposed to affect you, such as lust, envy, jealousy, people doing each other dirty for money or businesses.
Mm-hmm.
You people that I know that go to the mosque and pray 5 times a day. They go to church every Sunday, but they're cheating people on the side with
Sure.
businesses. So I mean, the Most High God watches everything,
Mm-hmm.
and that's exactly the truth, that
Mm-hmm.
these people are part of that system that's upholding injustice and misery and the downfall of the human condition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Until they realize the oneness of all races and religions, and what Morpheus and Neo had, that relation with each other as
Mm-hmm.
mentor and student,
Sure.
and know that sometimes you got to be able to learn from others and
Mm-hmm.
accept and stop resistance. Like, what is the meaning of Islam? To submit to a higher power.
Okay.
That's submission, and that's all of these paths are teaching you the same exact thing, and that's the reality that Morpheus is trying to teach Neo, because remember how much resistance Neo put up to Morpheus when Morpheus showed him the truth. He couldn't handle it. So sometimes you have this cognitive dissonance in society today where people are just not willing to learn at the same time. Like even in the Islamic community and other spiritual communities, they just get this ego about them that we know better, we think better. And once you fall into that trap, you automatically do become the enemy, because something has taught you to act and behave downwards towards another individual while not treating everyone with equal love and respect. I could go to a school, they're teaching me history that has been written by the victors, and it's not teaching me the truth about what really took place. Lawyers, it's a dirty system here in America where you'll have a lot of the system that's set up where they'll go and they'll charge you an astronomical fee to do something very minor. And how is a person supposed to survive and defend him or herself in a system that's already taking everything away from you? Carpenters, I see a lot here, and especially in the big city areas where they also charge an astronomical fee. I'm talking from an American point of view. And so in terms of the carpenters, it's the same thing. So what Morpheus is teaching you by listing these different individuals, that everyone's upholding some kind of a status quo. And if you challenge that, then they label you as the enemy, while they collectively are maintaining this system which is not allowing full human freedom, equality, justice, and liberty for all.
Sure. That is very beautifully said. That's very beautifully said, Sal, and it's very deep. So I suppose I'll add my interpretations to that. So I think with the quote, I mean, in the first half of the quote, we see Morpheus saying that, he says people we are trying to save. So, and we know in the Matrix, Morpheus is this benevolent, fatherly, kind, warm-hearted figure. He's not a malicious character. And so, we're assuming he's trying to save these people out of that kind of love. But again, in the same quote, he is essentially labeled everyone connected to the Matrix as the enemy. On the one hand, he's trying to save people, but on the other hand, he's calling everyone the enemy. And so I think there's just a peculiar parallel, an interesting parallel. Now, this is from what we know as the New Testament. Whether the historical Jesus said this or not, of course, we don't know. But according to this text, and both of these quotes are in what we know as the Gospel of Matthew. In the first quote, it's written that Jesus said, "But I tell you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who mistreat you and persecute you." Right? And in the same book, Gospel of Matthew, it's quoted that Jesus said, "Don't think that I came to send peace on the earth. I didn't come to send peace, but a sword." So if we sort of got this similar parallel where, well, according to the text, Jesus is saying, love your enemy. And then on the other hand, he said, "I didn't come to send peace, but a sword," which is kind of like what Morpheus is saying here, where on the one hand, he's trying to save people, but on the other hand, he's just designated them all as enemy. And so I thought that was just an interesting parallel. Whether the Wachowskis had this in mind, I don't know. That's not the point. Another interesting thing is you mentioned carpenters, which is one of the 4 professions Morpheus mentions. So he says businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters. And what do you think about carpenters? Who is a famous carpenter?
I guess Jesus could be seen as a famous carpenter.
Exactly. And so basically out of all professions, the Wachowskis chose carpenters. There's some things in the Matrix, you can see that they did on purpose. Some things we sort of make our own connections, but yeah. So then we can ask the question: if Morpheus is this benevolent character, if he's this kind character, then it might be seen as a bit cruel to label everyone as enemy, because included in that are people who are serving the community. In the in the scene, we actually see a police officer. We also see, and this is not by mistake, but in the scene you actually see 2 female nuns. And one of them is holding a book, which could be a Bible, but there's 2 female nuns. So essentially Morpheus would be designating them enemy too. And that might seem, that and when he says enemy, that means that if they enter into conflict, that they might potentially have to end those people's lives, essentially. And if you die in the Matrix, obviously you die in real life. So it might seem a bit cruel but if you look at it from their standpoint, as long as you are connected to the Matrix, or what you could say, as long as you're blue-pilled. Do you understand what I mean by blue-pilled?
Yeah. You're connected and dependent on the world in some kind of way, which I have many family members that tell me, Sal, why don't you open a business? We'll help you and everything. And
Right.
you know what I tell them? I tell them I want nothing to do with this world. I don't want to be in a world where I have to lie to sell something to make a profit, to scheme somebody. Whatever I need, it comes to me abundantly. And when my heart is in the right place with my fellow man and the beings around me and the Creator, then abundance flows through me and to me. And I don't need to be in a position where I'm ruining my peace by trying to collect a fiat currency that's not going to serve me when I die. So the only value you have of this life is what good did you do for yourself and others, being selfless, and the aspect of sacrifice, which when Neo, when we move on to the third movie, you see that his sacrifice for humanity basically has long-term effects. So what you do for yourself dies with you, and what you do for others, that's immortal. And that's the reality, my brother, is that, yeah, it's fine. You play along with the system. Like what Islam teaches you, you have deen and dunya. You walk the middle path in support what the Buddha said too. Don't be on any extremity of any side, because you also have to deal with the matrix or the world in some way, because you have to support your family. It's like with everything that I've said so far, like you really gotta, because not every teacher is the enemy. I know so many teachers out here that work for pennies on the dollar and they barely get paid enough, but they stay after school past their salary hours just to help kids understand and get an education. There are some businesses that are nonprofit that help people. There are some carpenters that I know that go help orphans and other people for free. So Morpheus's interpretation is basically very vague, because you can't just generalize everybody as the enemy, because everyone serves their purpose by the Creator, designed in some way.
Yeah.
And when we get into that debate, then you'd be like, okay, unknowingly they're supporting a system which enslaves humanity. Then at that time, what does Jesus say? Forgive them, Father, for they do not know.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned it there, and he does give a generalized statement and calls all the blue pills or everyone connected to the Matrix as enemy. What do you think of that? I mean, do you think that's cruel, or do you think there's truth in that, or how would you interpret that part of the quote where he's designating everyone as enemy, everyone that's still part of the Matrix? What do you think of that?
Well, he's saying the truth, because, my brother, look at the situation of the world. Why is there war, famine, genocide, rape? With all of the military budgets that exist in the world, with all of the world resources and the world wealth by the elite that exist, you could end poverty on this land and globe 100 times over and create peace on earth. While those people maintaining that system want to keep it in chaos, because that's where they profit off, and that's what ensures their survival. So that's what Morpheus means by those who are knowingly and unknowingly supporting the system are part of the problem. And we must be on the side of liberty, equality, and justice for all beings of this world.
And I mean, in the Matrix, basically anyone that is still blue-pilled, so anyone still connected to the Matrix, basically at that point, they act as empty vessels for any agent to possess, and they do. So an agent can basically possess these people and move from one person to the other, and cause this kind of destruction. So in a sense, that makes these people an extension of the agents, or an extension of the system. And this is what Morpheus is saying. He's saying that what does he say again? He says, these people are still part of that system, because they effectively are. I mean, if you bring this example into our plane of existence, into this world, let's take a racist. By that I mean someone who truly believes and holds racist ideologies, right?
Yeah.
Now, if that person never commits a hate crime, never commits a crime, never harms anybody, he or she can still be labeled as enemy. Why is that? Because they still have that belief system in their mind, in their brain, and it just takes the right environment, the right trigger, the right stressor, or someone to groom them, and what was just a dormant belief or dormant thought pattern,
Definitely.
that can turn into that can manifest into truly destructive behavior. And by destructive, I mean causing harm or suffering to others. So in the say, it's as if, if you hold a certain belief pattern, you're an open vessel for the manifestation for the physical manifestation of the destructive potential of that belief system. If you understand what I mean, similar to in the Matrix, if you are a blue pill, you are a potential vessel for an agent to come in and start destroying. I mean, that really struck me that he called everyone enemy, and the fact, and again, this, in my opinion, this was just not a mistake that the Wachowskis put two nuns there. I mean, it's hard to think of a more innocent career than being a nun, but yet, by this logic, they are part of the system. They're part of the enemy, and it just shows you. I mean, it doesn't matter. And we see this in this life. It doesn't matter if you're a religious cleric, whatever religion, it doesn't matter. You could still be the enemy, and we see that. We see people in religious authority committing horrendous crimes, that we won't even mention here.
Yes.
And even after they commit those crimes, sometimes it's hard to even believe it, because, they're wearing the religious garments. They're part of the religious system, and it's hard to even though the facts have come out, it's hard to even believe it. So I think that is just such an eye-opener, that essentially Morpheus is saying, look, love your enemies, as you were saying also, Sal, love your enemies and, have mercy upon them, do good to them, but at the same time, carry a sword or the Matrix, Matrix terminology, guns, lots of guns. I think I didn't, when I first saw this scene, I can't remember, but I think I thought that was a bit cruel that he labeled everyone as enemy. But then sort of later on in life, you kind of realize that if you hold a certain ideology, that by default makes you quote unquote enemy, even if you do nothing, even if you actually don't act upon that belief system. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And the reason why the Wachowskis added their religious figures is because religion right now is being used as a form of economic principle by the people at the top, and also as a form of division, where everyone is telling you not to unite. They're saying, oh, if they don't believe what we believe, they're going to hell. Well, you have those in religious authorities. Some of them are doing unspeakable things, but you have agents of chaos who have also infiltrated all races, religions, groups, and walks of life on the earth. So you will find that struggle between light and darkness, between the red and the blue, in all paths of your life. No matter where you go, what you do, what you participate in, you're going to find that struggle that light and dark are having with each other everywhere you go. And that's something that you have to master within yourself. You have to become one with those energies and realize that what is going on. I go to the train station and I see one religion that has a table set up. They're saying, and they're listing the same exact beliefs and practices, conduct, and they're talking about the opposite table, saying that they're going to hell. While you go to the opposite table, it's the same exact conduct and rules and regulation, and they're saying the other people are going to hell. So you have this concept where people are out of touch with that oneness of that human family and the paths with each other. And all of this difference has caused so much chaos and destruction on this earth.
Indeed. Very good point. And like we were talking at the beginning, so before he actually says this, and you were sort of alluding to your Sufi experience, but Morpheus was weaving in and out of this crowd of people. He wasn't bumping into anyone, whereas the inexperienced Neo, he was just bumping into everyone, having a hard time keeping up. I mean, I didn't actually notice that until I saw someone had written that in a comment. I didn't, and that's just, and obviously that's purposeful. Obviously that has, the Wachowskis put that in there on purpose. And I think in this world, you're going to meet a lot of people either wish to do you harm or they don't wish it, but they are harmful for you. And they might say something to you or do something to you that's wrong, and the base reaction is to react against them or be angry and essentially bump into them. That's the sort of the childish sort of infantile base reaction to do that. And we see Morpheus isn't doing that,
Yeah.
but Neo, being inexperienced, he's bumping into everyone, and thereby that's that's delaying him from reaching his path on the street, by bumping into these people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this life, in this world that we live in, I mean, I think it's good to do the same, as in, don't react to people unnecessarily,
Mm-hmm.
because they're just going to hold you back where you want to go. But at the same time, you react when you need to react. And we see that in the Matrix, because they're not pacifists. Clearly, they've, I don't know how many people they killed in the Matrix, but they're not pacifists. So
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting, because it takes nuance. I mean, that's the thing. That's one thing that is missing, but it takes a lot of skill to have this kind of nuance, where you can love your enemy and still carry the stick or the sword. That takes skill, that takes nuance, and as you said, you can take the extreme and be a pacifist, and which is also wrong. Imagine sitting outside, like in World War II, a concentration camp, let's say, sitting outside Auschwitz and just saying, look, I'm a pacifist, I don't, I've got nothing to do with this. That's
No.
yeah.
That's what we see in the stories of look at the story of Moses when he saw the slave being abused.
Exactly, yes.
What did he do to that person?
He struck him. I think he killed him.
He struck him. Yeah. Same thing with Jesus when he saw the money changers
true.
in the temple, in a place of holy ground, which that unfortunately is still going on today, of people making money off of religion. And what did he do? He went in there and he got a whip and he whipped them with extreme prejudice. Same thing with Prophet Muhammad. With Prophet Muhammad, he was about peace and love, but when it was time to go against, pick up a sword against those that were abusing, persecuting Muslims. So God tells you that you have to uphold freedom, justice, and equality, and fight against injustice wherever you see, whatever capability that you're able to do so. And that's the reality. You have to find that balance within yourself. Like, even if you go to the Shaolin monks, why is it that they are taught self-defense? Because when it comes to chance to defend yourself, only for the sake of self-defense and defending your integrity, when you or your family is being attacked, then under God's law, you are supposed to. Same thing with so there is a balance between order and chaos that's inevitable, because one cannot exist without the other. And, with Neo, Smith was basically his shadow, because that's the reality, because Neo cannot exist without Smith. Smith cannot exist without him. So at the end, this life and the Matrix is a chess game. What I say is a chess game being played between Allah, God, and Iblis, Lucifer, with the light being destined to win. And they're just enjoying this experience, moving one chess piece against the other.
And this quote that we're talking about today, it's only made up of 3 sentences, but already there's just so much to extract from it. And for anyone listening in, we actually wanted to discuss the whole quote, but the second half of the quote needs an episode in its own right. And so we'll cover that. Yeah. We'll cover that part, the next part of the quote, in the next episode.
Sure.
Simply because it deserves that. Yep. So for anyone listening in, stay tuned. We'll cover the next part of the quote in the next episode. And so from myself and Sal, we'll see you soon. Sal, do you want to wish everyone well?
Thank you, Brother Alexander, for always hosting me on your program. And my salutations and greetings to all of your listeners and viewers. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well done, Sal. That's us done. That was good.